Hey there, music lovers. Thank you so much for dropping by the channel. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all the subscriptions and for the comments and for these and also those. Whatever you got, thanks for coming to this channel and being a part of it. And, yesterday I did a video where I talked about In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. It was a video that mentioned songs by solo artists that sound like they could have come from their respective bands. In this case, it would have been Genesis. In the Air Tonight could have easily have been a Genesis song. And one of the reasons is because, it's got the eerie keyboards and the textural kind of guitars and the drums. I mean, signature Phil Collins, the big crashing drums that really are the payoff for that song. And it's a sound that Phil Collins used not only on his future solo albums, but also in Genesis 2. And it kind of got me thinking is, you got to give credit to Peter Gabriel for that sound. Who knew that Peter Gabriel influenced Genesis in the 80s and 90s? Because you may recall Peter Gabriel was in Genesis. He was the lead singer. He left in the mid-70s. But he left his mark on Genesis in the decades to come, even though he wasn't there. And I'll tell you why that happened. So Phil Collins played drums on Peter Gabriel's third solo album, which went by the name of Melting Face. You may recall Peter Gabriel, he did not give a name to his first three solo albums. They kind of had these descriptive names. And the album was produced by Hugh Padgham, who went on to produce Genesis. And on the album, there was a song called Intruder. It was the very first song. It's a great, great song. It's about this guy that breaks into people's houses and goes to their drawers and cuts their phone lines. And it's a real creepy song. You actually feel like Peter Gabriel is like going through your sock drawer. It's a really cool song. And Phil Collins plays drums on it. And Hugh Padgham, he had a method that he wanted to implement onto Phil Collins' drums, which was called like a gated effect, which basically cut the frequencies off. So when Phil Collins hit the snare drum, it was like a smack, and there were no cymbals. And so it was just the drum with this very harsh kind of smacking sound, and that's the drum that is all the way through Intruder. I'll put a link to it down below so you can check it out for yourself. And that was the genesis, I guess you could say, or the birth of the Phil Collins drum sound that we all came to know. That's the sound that Phil Collins used on In the Air Tonight. It's the sound that he used on Abacab, which was the next Genesis album to come out after that Hugh Padgham was the producer for. And, Abacab, that album had a whole different sound than any Genesis album that came before it. Abacab was a very in-your-face album. The drums were more stark and just, they were there. There was no denying, and it actually sounded more like Genesis did live in concert. It was the first Genesis album to really capture the live sound that the band had. And so this is the drum sound that Phil Collins used in the 80s and 90s, and even for his solo albums. And so you can see how Peter Gabriel impacted greatly the sound of Genesis decades after he had left, which I think is really, really cool. And it also kind of makes you think what could have been, if Gabriel hadn't left Genesis, if they had still been able, or if they had gotten back and done an album in the 80s. Intruder is the kind of song that I think Genesis could have probably done. I mean, you've got Gabriel there, and you've got Collins there, and Padgham, the keyboards in it and everything. It sounds like it could have been a Genesis song. So what do you think? What do you think about Intruder? What do you think about Gabriel's effect on Genesis and Phil Collins' drum sound? Let me know. Put it down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Hit subscribe, and I will be back soon with another video.